Hello, this is reb0rn, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Here on this show, we take a look at up-and-coming North American talent. Each week, we check out a new player to get a feel for their personality and their playstyle. On Thursday, we interview the player to try and find out more about who they are and why you should care about them. On Friday, we watch 3 of their games as we cover their playstyle in each of the 3 matchups. Saturday, we take a look at an awesome game that they've played and relax with a little bit of fun as we recap the week and get an analysis of the games. Breaking Out will cover 8 players before it culminates into the Breakout Invitational. With a minimum prize pool of $1,000, we find out who is the most likely player to break out of the North American scene. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Hello, this is reb0rn coming at you with another episode of Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we are starting it off with our ZvZ of the week. This is, of course, from the week of Clarity Gaming's reb0rn. So let's go ahead and jettison ourselves into this first game on the ZvZ matchup on the map Polar Night, as we spawn down here on top of the red Zerg player, the highlight player of the week, representing Clarity Gaming once again. As you see that beautiful little logo down over by that hatchery, it is reb0rn. And his opponent spawning up here in the top side of Polar Night as the blue Zerg player. He is going to be the enemy, but still a really great player is going to be representing Team Micro Gamers, Mysticism. And Mysticism honestly is a really great Zerg player. I've actually been seeing his name around for quite a while, and Microgamers are pretty recently formed teams, and it's cool to see them having such great players such as Mysticism. But let's talk a little bit about the highlight player of the week, Clarity Gaming's reb0rn. Now, reb0rn did say in his interview yesterday, which was in fact Thursday if you were watching the videos live on Twitch, or even just catching the videos on YouTube on time as soon as they came out, that reb0rn feels pretty comfortable going for that hatchery first. As you can see, Mysticism going for the spawning pool first, reb0rn immediately going for the hatchery first. Honestly, after having talked with a lot of players, most of them don't feel like it makes the biggest difference, but it's that small little edge, it's the small things that really get you ahead, especially in a mirror matchup like Zerg versus Zerg. But more importantly, reb0rn has also said that he feels like he can hold off any of the early spawning pool openings, early pool openings, with some good drone micro. He's not going to have to do that because Mysticism, honestly, just going for a pretty standardly timed pool. It's a bit of a safe pool opening, and then following up into that good old hatchery eventually. But reb0rn also does say that he likes to open up gasless. Now that is something that is a little bit less common. As you can see, so far he hasn't taken any gas geysers, which is fine. I mean, he went for the spawning pool, or the hatchery first. But you can see Mysticism, he went for that spawning pool, he's going up to get that gas geyser, he's going to get that Zergling speed up very, very quickly. In comparison to reb0rn, I mean, it's a normal time for a Zerg player these days to get the gas geyser and get up that speed, but reb0rn likes to open up gasless. He feels like it gives him that edge as he moves into the mid game, because he can just start his upgrades up so much faster. He can get up those double gas geysers a little bit later on in the game, I think around like the 5 or so minute mark, and he just kind of plays a little bit of catch up with the gas, but he has a much better economy behind it. So we'll have to wait and see how that ends up working out in this game in particular, because Mysticism, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what he's going to end up doing. That could definitely change the way that reb0rn handles the game, because reb0rn again has also mentioned in his interview that he likes to play much more reactively. Now, just in terms of this matchup and the map, Polar Night is really, really well known for being a map where Zergling aggression, Baneling aggression, and Roach aggression, just a lot of those early game units are very, very common to see. Just kind of poking and prodding at your opponent, because honestly, for ground units, the distance between bases is not that far. I mean, it's basically like a straight line straight over to your opponent for the most part. So we end up seeing a lot of Zerglings, Banelings, etc., even some of those Roaches moving out across the map, trying to get some good damage done. Now, we do have the first 2 set of Zerglings for reb0rn, kind of poking their way across the map. They're going to scout out this hatchery, and that's not going to be anything too surprising, but more importantly, I think that reb0rn's going to be looking for that gas geyser, and it looks like he's going to get a free scout out into the main base, and it looks like he actually did see the gas geyser a little bit earlier, but Still, it's nice to get a good feel to see, okay, well, you're not mining gas anymore. That means that you're probably not just going to go for some kind of big baneling all in on me or anything. He obviously saw that there is, in fact, a hatchery here, so everything looking pretty good. But we do have a lot of Zerglings coming out for Mysticism right now, and this could be a really, really scary prospect. I mean, he's taken his drones off of gas, so there's not going to be some sort of baneling follow-up immediately, but his Zergling speed is finished up, and that is the timing that Mysticism is going to try and hit. Now, Reborn is actually already prepared for this. He can actually already just defend with these 2 queens, or these 3 queens, and a couple of spike calls finishing up at the exact perfect time. Now these Zerglings are going to be able to whittle away at one of the queens, the queen backing up a little bit. Is there a little bit of a gap over there? There is, and the Zerglings actually managed to make their way straight over into that base and actually managed to get a full surround on these queens. Now these Zerglings from Reborn do not have any speed, so it is going to be a very difficult defense over here if he lets these Zerglings go a little bit too rampant, but it looks like only a handful of them do manage to make their way over into the main base, but they do manage to spot out the timing on that layer. That is going to be a really, really nice little win over there for Mysticism. You can also see, okay, no 3rd and 4th gas geysers down, but the natural expansion has both of them down. So, I mean, Mysticism definitely getting a nice little scout out. He knows there's not going to be some sort of crazy fast tech up into Mutilus, which actually Reborn has said in his interview that he doesn't actually like to go for. He likes to go for those kind of double evolution chamber into straight up lots and lots of roaches, but of course with the roach worn down, Mysticism may have already had a couple of tells for that. So Mysticism going to just kind of say, okay, well that didn't do nearly as much damage as maybe he wanted it to. Obviously he was able to kill off the queens. That is a nice little boon. But still, that was a lot of Zerglings that could have been drones. Now they have even drone counts, and Mysticism has actually gotten a 3rd behind this. But you have to remember that he wasn't really teching by this. He didn't get any of his drones in those gas geysers for quite a bit of time. He's thrown down the double evolution chambers, but they're already later than Reborn's, because Reborn has already started up his upgrades, double upgrades for both of those evolution chambers, and now he just doesn't have any units to actually defend against something like this. I mean, he has a handful of Zerglings, but even the Roach one is already down, and now he's going to end up losing this 3rd expansion, which he was kind of taking. But honestly, after losing so many of those Zerglings, that was going to be such a difficult expansion to defend, because even if these Zerglings did not kill off that 3rd, the Roach follow-up that Reborn is transitioning out into would have been very, very difficult to defend against anyways. But it looks like for now, Mysticism's going to at least stop Reborn from doing too much more damage with these Zerglings. He's just going to kind of poke around over here. Might even be able to get a cancel off on Reborn's own 3rd expansion, as that is drastically falling in health very, very quickly. And he does a nice little cancel done over there. And actually the 3rd expansion being retaken for Mysticism already. But I have to say, again, that this big push out with these roaches that I think Reborn is looking to do is going to be very, very scary, because Mysticism just got up his gas geysers, or I should say started mining gas much later than Reborn, and also got up these upgrades a little bit later. So Reborn's going to have a nice little timing and also a nice little roach lead. You can already see he's 15 roaches to the 7 right now of Mysticism. He's pushing out across the map. Mysticism does spot it. He has the opportunity to try and prepare for this. He actually is dropping creep over here, creating a nice little highway maybe for those roaches. I was thinking maybe he might try and build some spine collars, but no, I don't think that he's time for it. He's going to lose a couple of these roaches. The roaches from Reborn starting to target fire down that 3rd expansion, but he needs to make sure he engages this. A lot of those Zerglings for Reborn actually engaging the hatchery rather than the army of Mysticism, but Reborn just has so many roaches, I'm not sure if it's actually going to matter over here, as it looks like no, Mysticism does manage to pull out enough of those roaches to push back Reborn for now. Reborn still producing just more and more roaches behind all of this. Has a couple of drones in the works, but with that +1/+1 finished up, it looks like he's just going to try and defend his own 3rd expansion, which actually has been canceled a couple of times. So he does have to be a little bit careful. He has to make sure that his units are going to be in the right position to deal with those kind of Zerglings counter swings that Mysticism has actually just been really good at, kind of constantly moving these Zerglings around the map. I believe that this is the first set of Zerglings that he had made for that follow-up attack that Reborn tried to do, where he basically pushed back that army that Reborn had pushed across the map and try and pick off that 3rd expansion with. So he's managed to keep those Zerglings alive, constantly had them moving around the map and just being active. So really good on Mysticism, but is that going to be enough? You can see over here, he's actually starting to fall a little bit behind the upgrades. He's not starting that Carapace upgrade just yet, just going straight for the missile attacks, and even that is actually a full 30 or 40 seconds behind, which it's going to be a narrow window for Reborn to actually take advantage of, but it's still going to be possible, and more importantly, that Carapace upgrade is also going to be really nice. And oh, look at this, we actually have Burrow starting, as well as the Tunneling Claws upgrade. So just a ton of upgrades going on for those Roaches of Reborn. Reborn really liking that Roach style. And I mean, I have to say that it has become a little bit more of the standard in the matchup to see a lot of Roaches versus a lot of Roaches. But it is definitely a big macro battle, and a lot of positioning gets involved in this. So we'll have to wait and see where is the positioning for this next engagement going to be. Reborn actually kind of funneling himself in over to that engagement, and he does manage to get a good split up, and actually on top of the ramp as well. This is a great position for Reborn. He also has those +1/+1 upgrades versus the +1/+1 upgrades, so it's even, but it looks like Mysticism just has way more Roaches right now, and Reborn actually engaging just a good 25 to 30 seconds before his 2-2 was going to be finishing up. That could be a critical blunder that Reborn just made, where he just lost a ton of his Roaches, but he may still be able to stabilize. He's going to be finishing up that Tunneling Claws as well as the Roach Burrow upgrades, as well as his 2-2 upgrades. So I mean, so many of these things are going to be popping in here for just a second. If we had that beautiful Game Heart overlay, if this map was played on the Game Heart map rather than on the ladder, then we'd probably be seeing 4 or 5 of those upgrades just kind of all lined up over there and finishing up at the exact same time. It's a beautiful thing to see. Unfortunately, this was, again, probably a ladder game, so not going to be the case. We won't be able to see that kind of beautiful display of it. But still, Reborn really timing that out well, except for the engagement, I feel. But now he does have that 2-2 upgrade finished up. He also has the Burrow, and we'll have to see if he can make use of it, because he's going to have to if he wants to be able to overpower this many Roaches. You can see over here, that is 2 almost full control groups of those Roaches. That's 24 times 3 minus 3. So that's a lot of Roaches, whereas Reborn obviously just, I mean, it's just a matter of math. 1 control group with a couple of Roaches missing versus almost full 2 control groups. Reborn's going to have to back up, but I like this over here. He's actually going in with a counterattack of these Roaches, kind of pulls the entire army down to the southeast side and says, well, you know what, now I'm going to come in with Roaches from the northwest side. But with all of that being said and done, it looks like Reborn is going to have to pull back with those Roaches. Again, making use of that Burrow just to try and keep those Roaches alive and able to harass a little bit later. I have to say that Mysticism really has not been able to get up this third base, mining to the capacity that he probably wants it to. And now we're going to see Reborn move in once again with all of these Roaches. It looks like it's going to be pretty close in terms of the Roach count, especially with Reborn rejoining in with some of those harassment Roaches. We're going to see the big engagement over here. The third expansion has already been picked up, and the Roaches for Mysticism are in a big clump over here. Reborn actually does have a pretty nice little concave, especially with some of those reinforcing units coming in at a good angle over here, especially in comparison to Mysticism, who's only making this concave better and better for Reborn. But Mysticism, does he have enough Roaches to actually make this work? It does not look like it. He's getting cleaned up. The 2-2 upgrades, the Burrow, the massive number of Roaches coming in for Reborn, as well as that concave just working out so well for him. And now he's going to be able to push his opponent back. But look at this, Mysticism coming out with one of those fresh inject larva pop-outs of Roaches, and he's going to be able to push Reborn back for at least a little bit. Reborn going to have to recuperate his losses with some of those reinforcement Roaches of his own, and looks like with that being said, he's going to be able to overpower his opponent. GG gets called from Mysticism. Reborn gonna take the game, so really well done by Reborn, as he really did just kind of showcase his massive macro mode. And honestly, I have to really hand it to him, as well as looks like we did have a small little Zerg run by over into that main base, but I really like the movement that he was kind of doing around the map, where he was moving in with those Roaches. Yeah, he had less Roaches, and obviously he was actually even losing a lot of those Roaches in not so favorable engagements, like trying to move up this ramp against a massive number of Roaches, ended up losing 5 or 6 of them, and just constantly that ended up happening. But he just had a really solid late game macro, and also was constantly aggressive. That's one thing I have to stress, is that he was constantly aggressive in keeping Mysticism back on his side of the map. I mean, outside of that one Zergling big swing and attack in the early game, Mysticism was basically on his side of the map almost the entire time, except for that small set of Zerglings that was kind of moving around the map. And that is just because Reborn didn't give him a chance to actually be aggressive. And he actually denied mining at this third expansion for such a long time. The hatchery was there. He was keeping it alive. Mysticism was pushing back Reborn's Roaches, but he was barely able to actually get any drones over there to mine from it safely, because Mysticism kept coming in with counterattack swings from those burrowed Roaches, pulling the entire army down here to the bottom side to allow those Roaches to do damage, and just being as annoying as possible. And it ended up working out in the end. So really well done by Reborn with the kind of macro aggressive style, which is a lot of fun to see. But with that being said, guys, that is going to put an end to the Zerg versus Zerg of the week. we're going to be moving into the Zerg versus Terran now, which I know is one of my favorite matchups to watch. It's not my favorite entirely of all the matchups there are. I'm just going to say it, Terran versus Protoss, my favorite matchup. But still, one of the best matchups. I know it's voted on like multiple polls to be the favorite matchup overall by a majority of people. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and check out reb0rn Zerg versus Terran. So go ahead and check that out if you're on YouTube. It's certainly uploaded around the same time as this Zerg versus Zerg. But if you're over here on Twitch, we're going to cut to a really short break. Go to the bathroom, go grab some popcorn, and get ready for the Zerg versus Terran. I will see you guys there.